Hello, hello. This is Irene with SaugaTalks. Hello. Thanks everyone for joining. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, if you're on X, if you're on YouTube, or just listening as a podcast, please let us know what you think because I'm Irene Lakovetsky. I speak with fascinating people in tech. And what we discuss, as you may be familiar already, we all the way from AI trends to adoption, to automation, to industrial automation, to digital transformation. Wow, that's a lot of Asian words. And today is my day because Doug Shannon is with me here at SaugaTalks Studio. Doug, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, Irene. Thanks for having me on, and it's to be a fantastic conversation.
I'm a huge fan of yours. You're an expert in automation, in AI, generative AI, industry expert. I'm here to ask a lot of questions because you can help us to shed some light. And to me, you're the guru I follow, and I encourage everyone to follow Doug on LinkedIn. Lots of knowledge, lots of wise thoughts, and actually experiences shared there. So Doug, in the latest your latest post, we're gonna tag it here. We're gonna put the link here in this video because I want to people to get to know. All right.
Right.
So you provided an overview of IoT analytics report.
Yeah, I mean the report that they put out is fantastic by itself. The way that I kind of change it up that they'll see in the post of this video is that I kind of add an overlay, and that overlay is to help understand not just the overall market, but where it's touching from the private side of the companies or the public side of the companies, and then who are the trendsetters that are out there saying all the brand new stuff, just like we saw like in video yesterday. All these things are coming out and they're new, but what's really impacting enterprise technologies? What's impacting those companies, those enterprises, those consumers? And that's usually what I talk to is like, how do enterprises really fall into this? So in that report, we're seeing a resurgence of IoT. And this is, telemetry, it's data on the edge. It's the stuff we heard about 10 years ago when they said, hey, there's this thing called IoT, the Internet of Things. What's it going to do? And then they basically said, well, your toaster is going to talk to your refrigerator and it's going to tell you if your toast is ready. Nobody cared. And it really wasn't really ready because everything wasn't really connected then. And the data points that they had weren't providing the telemetry, weren't providing the data, the details, the structured data that were needed. It was basically just like computer data or it was machine data. So now we have LLMs and the Gen AI aspects of that taking on IoT and providing that information out. So when you have an IoT device, a medical device, a device that's tracking, your trucks or your transports or anything from vats of liquids of any kinds, from wine to grain, all of that could have an IoT device providing telemetry back to a handheld, to a cell phone, to your industry systems, to your enterprise systems. That's massive. And so when you look at the chart that's in the link below, you'll see like how 5G is coming in the same space that IoT is. All of it's kind of like really coming together, and that's the part that people need to pay attention to. It says it's like leaving, but really it's not leaving. It's coming into the general populace. Like this is what people and companies are now looking at because now it's not just new, it's not bleeding edge. It's becoming best business practice. Like how do we get that data? What does that data look like? How do we drive that data home? It's IoT is coming, and that's what we're going to see in 2025 majorly kick back up.
I remember those days 10 years ago when we heard about IoT as emerging technology. So now it's pretty much foundational, right? Foundational must-have tech. Okay, could you please talk about, you started a little bit about intersection, of course, AI, generative AI. So do we want our refrigerator to talk to our toasters when we're at work? Or how our life is going to evolve because of the new capabilities?
Yeah, I mean, part of that's just like the fact that, like, even in the same chart, like you have the mass majority still are looking at chatbots, and chatbots are not really a thing anymore. We moved past that. That was when we had regular AI or academic AI, as I like to call it. But now we're in Gen AI, and it's not co-pilots. Like co-pilots could use IoT and could use some of the other features of what we're talking about here. But then it's the AI agents that are going to be tagging these in and have the ability to go and reach out to these IoT devices. And that's when you get into the whole subsection of IoT, which is industry IoT. So industry Internet of Things. But what does that mean, right? So if you break that down, IoT is What if you had the robot on the assembly line that then knew that there was an issue on the front end of the assembly line versus the end of the assembly line? So like everything's interconnected, everything is then orchestrated because you have the details and the data. You don't just need eyes on it, you don't need humans on it, you need these devices that are providing the telemetry, like again, the data, the what, where, and why of it, and say like this is happening. So at an instant, if there is an outage or a something breaks or there's a ticket that's needed to happen, things can automatically start occurring. And this is where AI agents come in. So even past agentic. So agentic brought us to AI agents, where an AI agent is not just a task rabbit that goes and does tasks. It actually has goals that it can be assigned to. So the goal is to keep the line up, or the goal is to ensure that the maintenance is good. But that's all going to be defined out by the humans that are helping to define these processes, right? So as it goes, the telemetry and the data and everything working together in an orchestrative way, that's the future of IoT and IIoT. So again, like on the human side of this, on the physical consumer side. So consumer side of IoT or IIoT is you have like a medical patch or a medical device that does a thing, that measures a thing. So that data is coming to you. So the cool thing about IoT now and what's coming is the like kind of like I talk about online on LinkedIn too, is like the alignment, clarity, and transparency. You're aligning with your medical providers. You have clarity because not only are they getting information, you're getting information back. And so when that comes back to you, it's very transparent. So you then know your eating habits or what's happening or what you're looking at. And that data is very transparent to yourself. So then you build trust with your providers. They know if you're taking the medicine or what milligrams of the medicine. All that stuff is going to be very ease of use in the future. And so as we see this commoditization of IoT, IoT, 5G, the different kind of things we have going in there with like the LLMs and just the GPUs that we have coming out and the new tech and more new tech every time we turn around, it's looking pretty interesting.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. So for me, okay, last time we talked, it was about automation, industrial automation, RPA came about a couple of times, right? So agentic AI, okay, in my mind, I'm learning about these things, right? In my mind, is it RPA on steroids? I hate this, cliche word. Is it something completely new that we all have to understand?
Yeah, so agentic AI is interesting. So it all started because LLMs came out and it gave us AI search, essentially. The Google search of AI is kind of what happened. Everybody had access to it. They said, wait, I can search something, I can get fairly good responses back as long as I don't ask it some crazy questions and make it hallucinate on purpose. And then it goes into, well, how do businesses utilize LLMs? Well, they can and can't. They can more now because LLMs don't really have use cases. So we need to move away from understanding LLMs don't have use cases. That's the point. Now, if you say RAG and search and knowledge searches as use case, it's not. Those are functions that can happen afterwards and functions of like talking to your data or storing your data, but is perceived value, not actual value, because you end up paying more than you probably can prove you can use. But either way, so they had to find a solution. Like, how do we get businesses to utilize this? How do we find use cases? Because that's really what companies look at. Like, we have a pain point, an issue, a demand. Let's get that resolved. So it became to agentic or agentics or agentic process automation or agentic automation. And so essentially it's saying, how do we drive this forward? What do we do with those things to drive it forward? But agentic is just a step in the right direction. So the accumulation of that, because things are moving very fast, is AI agents. And so agentic was just like, let's do a lot of tasks. Let's do hive tasks, like do 10,000 tasks at once and do the same thing over and over again and get it done. That's very like automation, like classic automation without orchestration, but do the task thing and do a thing, and then there's maintenance issues. However, AI agents that can take on goals, understand KPIs, run with it, go with it, have the connections, have the data sets, or the talking to IoT devices, or the network drives, or the RBAC, the role-based access control, all of that of understanding like where they touch, how they touch, what level of information can they touch. That's the future of AI agents and the ability to collaborate with humans with that. That's the key forward. And that's where Agentic got us to there. And that's where things are moving now. And so when you see things like Agentic AI, there's many different ways to look at it. Kind of like I mentioned, like there's like those classic ways, but in general, AI agents is the future forward, and then beyond that is multi-agent systems or multi-agent frameworks.
How do you call this model, right? See one, do one, teach one, learn one. This is first time I hear those terms. Could you please spell out? This is all about technology adoption. So if we apply it to AI or agentic AI, could you please elaborate?
Yeah. So classically, like even back in school days at college and everything, even an IT side or even the healthcare side, it's the classic state of learning to become a quote unquote expert or good at what you're doing is see one, do one, learn one. And I was like, that's not good enough. In the age of things that we have right now, you can't just learn one by doing, because there are so many different perspectives, there's so many different aspects, there's so many things that one person just doesn't know. And so I found myself doing this. And so what I would do is I would see one, I'm like, hey, what is that? I would go do it. Like, oh, that's really cool and really interesting. But then I would get to the point where I could actually teach it, and I'd work with different council groups, different people, different organizations, different advisory groups, and say, does this work? What does this look like? And then you get that perspective back, and they go, no, that's horrible. Or, oh, hey, what about this? Or what about these aspects? The same thing we learned even with Gen AI, and we look at the biases. We're like, wait, we didn't know it wasn't doing this thing because we didn't look at it because we had our own perspective. And so when you don't teach, you don't get that perspective. And if you do get the perspective, well, then you learn. So see one, do one, teach one, learn one became kind of my standard, because that's how I was able to learn faster, keep up, understand what things actually matter, and really engage and have that empathy really that comes out of that to say, am I right or am I wrong? Am I leading myself down an echo chamber? Am I just believing what everybody else is? Am I seeing the hype? But if I ask and I teach and I get that different perspective from different groups, no, like it's pretty accurate that you can actually really gain knowledge much faster that way.
This is one of my favorite topics here on SaugaTalks. Okay, no matter what the topic is, I do want you to talk to us a little bit. Okay, if you're a software engineer, you have to learn the job, right? People take classes, people attend boot camps. Okay, those who are not technical, they find ways to become technical. They're interested. So that's a very, to me, fascinating life we're living. All right. So with teach one and learn one. All right. What's the advice for those who may be entering the profession right now, who are quite technical, but maybe not just sure of themselves yet, right? Because we rarely are.
Yeah, I mean especially those that are getting out of college and they're saying like, how do I do what I do, right? Luckily, colleges do try to find job placement and try to help you get into different businesses, but it's the no-name college, or the colleges that some of us went to, even like myself, that you don't have that opportunity sometimes. So I think the biggest thing is that we've known, especially people in the age groups that are just coming out of college, they've seen how customer service has fallen off the wayside for years. You call a thing, you call a pharmacy, you call something, and you're like, you get this dial tone, you get this recorded machine that you're like, I just want to get to a person so I can ask the thing I want to ask because my question is not in the buttons or what have you. So think about, and this is why I say like the ACT model I use as well, which is like alignment, clarity, and transparency. So if you can come out of college and then align even with yourself and say, hey, I want to do these things. Great. Well, do you understand what that fully means? Because I talked to a lot of different startups in San Francisco area that are doing AI and Gen AI, and they're like, we're doing enterprise. I'm like, are you really doing enterprise just because you have some API calls? No, you're not. So again, like they can align on, I want to do a thing, I want to drive to get to enterprise. Great. Well, the clarity is what's the best practices? What connections do you need? What back end systems do you need to touch to ensure that you can actually support that? Great. You may need to bring in advisors. You may need to bring in the right people. You may need to even work with the right groups just to get like ITIL certified or if you're doing Europe, like GDPR and all these different things and those aspects. So do the work, like align on the work, like what the goal is, do the work to clarify it, and then build in the transparency to understand like, did it work? Did it get through? Were you customer service oriented? Did the customer that you're providing the source files or doing the service for or providing this product for, do they see the value in that? And if you're transparent enough, then what happens is that transparency comes back and then they can clarify, hey, we need more, we need to do this, or hey, that wasn't quite right, and then you go fix and you fix and fix. So again, like building that customer service aspect, trying to understand where your users are. The other thing I talked about is like in a company aspect is that your employees are your first customers, and so if you're not enabling them and empowering them and just building out ways to embolden them on the things that they're doing now, then you might not be doing it right.
Okay, back to LLMs. Okay, as fascinating as they are, all right, and new ones coming out every day. So people who really after to be on the edge of what's happening, all right, I envy them because yeah, I only can speak to smart people and trying to share what I learn, with the audience out there. So, Doug, what's the most exciting right now in the LLM world?
Yeah, it's interesting because of the news from NVIDIA just yesterday, and so that news, the interesting part was the fact that for $3,000-ish, you can have a 200 billion parameter system in your office. So now you have LLMs that are in the office that are privatized essentially, and that there's a lot of wins there. There's a lot of more security there. There's a lot of wins. The issue is people still talk about hallucinations. With advanced RAG models and stuff like that, your hallucinations are very low. So hallucinations are kind of like on the wayside. It depends on how you're prompting and how you're asking questions, and if you're asking it to be in a hallucination manner. So I don't really worry about hallucinations, but I do worry about still like the prompt injections and the potential model drifts. Now, if you have your own model that is on your own system, that is at your house or at your business or community there, that's less likely because you're not going to be able to change. But then how do you update that model? That's a whole other questions. But in general, prompt injection is still going to be an issue even on your own stuff. So where does that go? We don't know yet, but it's interesting to see the physical side of AI coming back into it. And the reason why I say that is because like we started off with, you need LLMs, you need GPUs, and then it spurred off to, instead of graphical processing units, you got LPUs, so language processing units. So now those are faster than GPUs because we're transmitting language and we're working with that with these LLMs and these transformers. So what does that drive towards? And it becomes interesting. So now, is it going to replace us? I mean, there again, like there's parts that are going to replace different parts of the business. Companies throughout the decades have said, how do we save money? We need less people. But how do we avoid that? And should we avoid that in the future coming? Yes, this is why I take a very human first approach to things and say, not meaning like, let's have people do the work. No, like it's a human first approach and understanding that humans provide context now much more than AI and everything else out there. We still provide insight and community and understanding around how to collaborate with other humans much more than another AI can do. So the future is really driving towards that enablement and saying, classically, I've said for probably a year or so now, is like, it's not fire, it's just don't hire. So the companies are looking for ROI, instant ROI. Don't fire your people. You just don't hire more people, and then automatically there's ROI there. And the reason why I say that is because you don't have to fire anybody because there's always more work, right? Everybody knows you automate something that we've learned in automation days, there's more work. You knock something out and you look at it and go, wow, I did all my work and it's all automated now, or it's all done with AI. There's still more work. So the aspect there is, if you don't let people go, you still maintain that tribal knowledge, you still maintain that user information, and then you just build out. So instead of one person, now you have like they're working for the power of like 3 or 5, and it's just going to grow. So yes, eventually you'll need less people, but will you, if your revenue is increasing, but you're not hiring headcount, technically you're still winning. So like we just need to really reshape how we think about this, and leaders need to understand it's definitely not fire. It's just don't hire. Because if we can do that, then that future of are we being replaced is less scary. And then we can start actually training those people that are coming out of colleges. Well, what does that look like when you come out? How do you learn a new trade, a new thing? And then how do you train that AI collaborative tool, that AI agent that's going to be working with you? How do you train that to do more? How do you train it to do part of your roles? And so then you can go learn a new thing and then drive it to understand that and be that collaborative effort in between. And that goes where I would say the future is also not human in the loop. The future is human on the loop. So we won't be as wagon wheel and connecting, like, do the thing, did the thing, do the thing, did the thing. We'll be sitting there watching as it's going as an auditor. So as the human, we're there on the company time and saying, look, we're the auditor. Did the AI do the thing it was supposed to do? Yes. Who's responsible for that? The human auditing it, right? So we need responsibility in our enterprises. We need to understand what's happening, when it's happening, and we need somebody at the wheel, because although we're not steering it, it's still like riding in one of the autonomous cars. It's driving. It's a WAMU. It's driving down the road. You know it's going to get there, but there still needs to be somebody like kind of in charge. That's why they have remote pilots too with those cars, just in case. So that's kind of the aspect of where the future is going. There's a whole other mess of future we can talk about, but that's the gist that
Yes,
people
I'm
need to
loving it.
understand.
I'm loving it. So again, whenever we touch on automation angle, all right, I just want to hear what's happening right now, comparing, I know, to 5 years ago, for instance, with process automation. All right, seems to be completely different process discovery capabilities right now, completely different, even mapping with all the LLMs, and how that changing, the actual enterprise life. If I can ask you
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's a quick one. So overall, automation came in because of audit capabilities and because of the fact that APIs weren't able to answer all the questions or build all the connectors. So automation can do that. Automation gives that extra angle of, if there is no API, how do I connect two subsets of data? I can build an automation to go fetch it, get it, standardize it, win. Now, automation isn't going away. Automation is still very much in use because AI takes tokens and takes lots of tokens, and tokens cost money. Now, if I'm going to, and this is where things like AI spanning has been something that I've talked about, where you have automation kind of prompting your AI on what to do next. And so your automation will go pull down 10,000, 100,000 pages of whatever. And then it'll say, okay, AI, now go summarize that, right? The automation doesn't need to do that. It really can't in some cases, but the AI can. But where you save tokens is that automation did that pull down for you. So you pull the data just like you would in the old AI days, in the academic AI days, where you say, grab the source material. Now let's go run some analytics around it. Okay, well, now we grab the source material. We do the same thing, but we can do so much faster as individuals, and you don't need all these teams and robot factories or AI factories of things that we had in the past. It's going to be eventually it's going to be on the phone again. Like, we're going to have these things on our phones, and our phones will be the most powerful thing, like, that a very human can have walking around with them. So there's that aspect of it.
Right. And again, I'm not going to let you easy off automation angle here, because frankly, what I hear is that companies still, okay, there's so many legacy systems, right? And people buried, okay? We talk about replacing people, but what I'm hearing, people working on 20 screens at a time just to connect those different systems, different legacy inputs, okay? There's not enough automation. There's not enough AI going on, because people know their screen. They're like robots who are very, very well trained. So what's the future out there, instead of, let's say, those merges, those integrations on backend? Not gonna happen. We know that's like decades old applications, right? So
Yeah.
this is less sexy topic, but how do you think we're gonna be better in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, there's the example of, like, there's S4 HANA, out there now that's doing all of the information, but like we still have legacy companies and systems, or companies that have so many ERP systems that they lost count, right? Because they've bought or sold or acquired or integrated. And so what does that look like? Those are the things that are very hard to change, and they take the longest time to change. Now, there are companies working now with these things called expert agents. So this is like a different future, but these expert agents are able to take on the not just the roles and the goals and understandings. They actually can have a personality, and the personality can actually have it adjust and take on different aspects of it, so that it can actually find out, for example, like using an old, almost dead language like COBOL or something, and understanding what it's doing, how it's structuring those folders and those areas, and then extrapolating that and then putting that into a different programming language that's actually manageable or mildable. Uh, so these expert agents take a little while to make and set up and everything, but that's kind of the future we're looking at too, is not just AI agents that handle a goal of everyday stuff and able to talk to the user, and the user is able to say, like, I need this thing, and typing it out in clear text and typing it out in very English as code to say what they need next. But it's the aspect of these expert agents becoming like the subject matter experts of people at a company that are able to drive this massive change for something like that nature, something that doesn't have an API, something that still uses, F1 through 10 keys to get through the files and the old days of what that looks like. We still have so many companies doing that. That's able to actually be addressed now by very few companies that are doing this. One in particular, but I won't talk about it.
In 2025, Doug, okay, what are you excited about? Okay, what actually makes you wake up in the morning and learning more and doing more and helping people, right, to find the solutions to their pain points? So, what should we be really excited about?
Man, everything, right?
Good.
So, I mean, right now, like I said recently, is that for every 6 months is AI. AI's 1 year is every 6 months of a human 1 year, right? So every 2 years of AI is 1 year of human years. That's just going to get faster. Even people like myself that are researching, looking at the details nightly, trying to keep up with things, trying to see like where that matches up and actually goes into the enterprise space. That's just going to get faster. It's crazy how fast this is getting. I think I think the exciting thing is I'm always passionate about what I do and I try to help out as much as I can. But I think even that's not enough. I think we need more people talking about what this is, what we're seeing in the industry and the companies and the communities and even ourselves, because as we heard about the need for compute and how the main players out there like OpenAI and Anthropic and these guys that they're computing around humans and they're not taking a very human first approach. The aspects there are humans are going to become commoditized as well. So our data, stuff we touch, anything that we use we've already seen this like in the social media realm of that, but like anything that's free or handy is commoditized. And so when our data is in there in that aspect of being used, we need to have more conversations like what are we okay with as humans, on a singular scale, and then what are we okay with in a business side is one thing. I'm okay with a LLM or an AI agent being on the system with me, helping me out, working with me, and knowing what processes are, because that's going to win for the business. That's what we're there to do. We're paid by them. We work with those businesses. Let's drive it forward. But on a singular side, on an individual side, are we okay with being fooled by AI, by pictures, by videos? Are we okay with seeing things that like and not knowing it's AI? Are we okay with things deciding for us or maybe leading us one way or another way? Like that's where I have an issue, and I think that's part of what we should be discussing. And so, what am I excited for 2025? I'm excited to see how this all works out, but I'm also excited to see how better can we be at helping each other, collaborating with each other as humans, because we are not the smartest thing in the world anymore. And how do we support one another in that? How do we take empathy and understand what that future could look like and how we should address that?
Doug, time is flying. Okay, I could ask million more questions because yeah, you're absolutely right. We live in fascinating times, and again, we can't even predict 6 months from now.
Yeah,
Let alone 5 years. Okay, so I'm not asking my guests anymore. About next year, next decade.
yeah,
Nope, nope,
no
I'm
way I
not
know.
doing it.
Yeah.
So, Doug, in conclusion of this conversation today, right, could you please maybe spell out few takeaways? Okay, what we talk about fascinating technology and how we adapt as people, as professionals, how we learn, how we actually change the enterprise, and how we change the world in some way.
Yeah, I take a human first approach to everything that we do as humans. We should say, how does this impact other humans? How does it impact ourselves? How do we feel about that? Not just the trolley experiment of like, do we take one person out versus five, but it's how do we want to take it? How do we feel about it? And then take action on that. And then there's aspects of like understand that IoT is coming out. It's going to impact everything around us. The massive different models that are happening, the fact that we now have them changing and becoming part of our daily lives. The AI operating system is probably coming right around the corner. We just don't know it yet. Just really dive in and start using it, because you need to use it to understand it. And you need to use it to understand prompting is not a really thing anymore. Prompting is just how you use your voice to explain the thing that you want it to do, and understand how to correlate that data, just like how you learned how to do searching on Google when it first came out, and adding plus signs to add things to it and whatnot, or how to curtail different aspects. Use it. Talk to people out there. There's many people on LinkedIn and other different social media platforms that actually are real. Reach out to the ones that are real, not the ones that are just like bots or paid or have people doing stuff for them. Find the authenticity. I think 2025 is probably that too. Finding those that are authentic and driving it forward. So that's what I'll leave you with.
Perfect, Doug. Thank you so very much for your time. Thank you. Please come back to check in. What else is new we learned here. Absolutely. I encourage everyone to follow Doug on LinkedIn. Tremendous wealth of knowledge and experience out there. Thank you, Doug, so very much.
Yeah, thanks.